6 months ago the Pungma Bridge attacked the Murim Central Alliance and destroyed their Murim Alliance. In the sudden onslaught the Central Alliance suffered heavy losses however. Soon, the Central Alliance regained its strength and pushed back the Northern Star sect. Two men stand on the edge and look toward destroyed Murim Central Alliance. It seems like the war against the Northern Star sect which had lasted for less than half a year was nearing its end. One of the men said however it's too late. And the other man standing behind him with tears in his eyes said, Elder, what is this? He is Gonrian's sect first disciple Jinmyong. Smoke filled the air and the stench of blood and burning flesh hung heavy. There were dead bodies of people of Murim Alliance. It was like hell had descended upon them. Jinmyong and his elder stepped forward. Elder said, these are the thugs, once they think they can win they spare nothing, not even animals. What's worse, they even went after the bakery sect. Two of them was standing watching their destroyed Murim Alliance. Northern Star sect. Jinmyong was remember the name with anger. He looked at a dead body of child and said, who would have imagined they would dare to commit such a audacious deed? To a child who seems yet to be 10 years old, it's filled memories that could make one's teeth chatter. The boy was laying on the ground lifeless, his face was filled with tears. And blood was flowing from his mouth. Jinmyong looked at him with pity eyes. He said, why in the world? What greeted the members of the Gonrian sect who came in the search for remnants of the Marshall brothers was. He sits down near the boy's body and closes his eyes. Nothing short of a gruesome scene. He shouted with anger even the innocent children. The elder who was standing behind Jinmyong said, no matter how powerful the North Star sect might be, the fact that the bakery sect who are renowned throughout the world couldn't even hold out for a day. Bakery sect have ninjas team. A revered lineage fortified with unwavering strength. The 7th generation leader had solidified his stature in Murim by his mere presence. The elder who was Gonrian sect's elder, his name was Chongsu Jinin. He said, well, even if they were to face the Northern Star sect alone, something seems strange about it. He grabbed his beard and think about it. The Northern Star sect is retreating northward because of the Central Alliance pursuit. Rather than destroying the bakery sect, it would have been wiser to conserve strength to be able to retreat even further. Jinin have faith that there might be survivors. He asked Jinmyong to instruct the disciple to search for survivors. Jinmyong follow the instructions of elder. Jinin have lots of questions in his mind. He thought, why of all sects, why the bakery sect? Could it be that the thugs are after something else? Suddenly Jinmyong called him. Jinin said, what's going on? Jinmyong pointed something and said, this is. Elder saw that and he was stunned. He can't believe in his eyes. He said, what is this? They saw someone is sitting on the middle of swords and an incredible power was flowing out of his body. All of the disciples were shocked. They said, what's wrong with him? Wow, such incredible power. Hundreds of swords are embedded all over this desolate land. Jinin said, it's like a vast sword cemetery. He take a brief look at the young man and said, he is still breathing. He stepped forward and said, hey you, how are you still alive? But Jinin was so shocked when the man looked at him, it's life force, key. His eyes was red and he looks like a ghost. Even the sky turned into red and big eyes appeared. Jinin was standing, seems like he was ready to fight with him. All disciples was ready to fight. They said, our Gonrian sect master. To emit such power with just a single glance. He hasn't when completed his apprenticeship, how can he possess such ki? The man was still sitting on the ground lowering his head. He was ready to stand up. He moved his hand to grab the sword. Jinmyong found the situation was strange, even if he is a survivor. All the disciple was shocked. It doesn't explain why he can't move his body. The man grabbed his sword with his hands. Jinin remember the sword, he said, the black on. Wangriang. How can he possess the bakery sect leader's sword? Perhaps he is from the remnants of the Bukma sect. Could the Northern Star sect have attacked bakery sect to obtain that sword? The man stand up, hold the sword in his hands. Master thinks, no, that doesn't make sense. Moreover, the aura I sense from that young Ma is clearly different from the Northern Star sect's aura. Bring the sword in the middle of his eyes and red energy was flowing out from Yuman's eye. But this eerie energy is particular. Jinin have no idea where it comes from. Jinin remember the young man, he is one of his disciples who said, I'll become stronger, not to protect or conquer but to overcome the turmoil within me. Jinin get all the situation and said, is he strong? As he got lots of energy. Jinmyong was listening from behind. But he can't understand anything. He looked at the young man and said, elder, be careful. But Jinmyong was fear from him. He said, what am I thinking to approach him even with an elder of Gonrian in front of me feels dangerous. He is truly terrifying. Young man put his sword toward Jinin. Seems like he was asking to him to come and fight with him. Jinin said, last time I saw you was about 10 years ago. while the young man pointed him with his sword. Young man said, when I visited Bakery Segas I only saw you briefly. Jinin said, it seems like your childhood self was still intact. But the young man shouted his name with anger, Kanga, and put his sword on the neck of Jinin. The sharp end of sword pinched the neck of Jinin and make a small hole. The blood began to come out from his neck. Young man said suppressing it is difficult, and he can understand that. Jinin understand that he must have suffered a lot. The young man start roaring with anger. And again pout his sword at him to start fight. Jinin said that's enough, and let's head back together. Kanga want to say something. But he put down his sword and calmed down. He began to fall on the ground but Jinin hold him. He take a look at Kang-ah and order the disciples to finish the search. I have only one goal. The annihilation of Mado, Red. Kanga said, go hurry, go quickly. With my parents and siblings all buried, choosing a different life path seemed impossible. He was sitting on the ground and trying to control his emotions. On a room where someone said, here are you awake now? There was Jinin who was sitting on a chair near Kanga who was lying on the bed. Jinin said, you opened your eyes. Aren't you Kong Bakery? I remember seeing you about 10 years ago, you were just a boy when you visited that palace. Kanga was surprised as he didn't expect their date to continue like this. He asked him, do you remember me, Master Chongsu? Chongsu Jinin said, yeah, you remember quite well. Kanga looked around and said, is this palace Adadonjal? Jinin replied, it's Songsan Ganyan. It's not my palace, but it's a place I visit often, called Songwabang. It's the coldest place where snow is falling. Kanga said, why am I here, am I the only one who survived? He trying to get up but he was injured badly. Jinin was trying to stop him and said, let's talk about that later. For now, with your current condition, you must not get up yet. Kanga said, I will repay the debt of saving my life. Jinin was disappointed after hearing this from Kanga. He said, well then, where are you planning to go? But Kanga didn't tell him and said, I must return. Jinin can't hold any longer. He began to shout, you can't in your current condition. Not losing your martial arts, or rather just surviving alone, is a blessing. Stay here for a while and recover. Kanga apologized to him. Jinin understand the current situation. He was well known that if he is trying to stop him he must trying to leave. He said, since you keep insisting, you leave me no choice. And he used his power to seal Kanga's movement. And tell him I've temporarily sealed your movements, so rest. Kanga was sitting on the ground holding beath sheet of bed and asked Jinin, please let me go. I have to go. Chonsu Jinin was well aware from his condition and said, with your current state, you can't even walk without support. What you possibly do? I know you're impatient, but even so, you should rest now. Kanga wants to leave as he can't stay still like this. Chongsu Jinin tell him that this is Sealwabong. Descending the mountain alone is a matter of life and death. If that's the case, then who you reply the debt of saving your life to, focus on your recovery. It would be a good idea to clear your clouded mind as well. Kanga was speechless after gyring all this. Jinin continued, taking indeed with your current condition, you can't do anything. Will you become one of Ganyan's disciples? He gave him a proposal. Kang-ah said, from that day on I accepted my master's proposal and decided to become a disciple of Ganyan. I resolved to stand up on my own. A few days later, Kanga was sitting on the bed and the red energy was flowing from his body. He was in a deep thoughts. Master Jinin, while grabbing his beard, said, you have natural vitality that's too strong to handle. It's different from being trained. It's like an innate vitality. Perhaps this is what's driving you to push your body so hard right now. Kanga was sitting silently on the bed closing his fists. Jinin continued talking, but anyway, vitality is vitality. Your vitality needs to be refined. Kanga was wondering, how can we handle this overflowing energy, like a flood? He opened and closed his fist. Jinin was watching him from distance, as he closed his eyes as he can't do anything about this. He remembered the footprints in the yard are messy. And asked him, have you been practicing martial arts? And if that makes you feel better, I won't stop you anymore. Since there has been a sudden increase in disturbance, you must never leave Sealwabong. Especially avoid going near Hamseol Peak and Bikwangji. Understand? He began smile and hold Kanga. He treat him like a little kid and said, kid, your body and bones are well trained and sturdy, so you recover quickly. Things will better soon. Don't be impatient and take your time to nurture your body. But Kanga was very sad and he also well known his condition, so he have to listen to his master right now. After Jinin leave his room, Kanga leave the place at outside. Cold wind is blowing and snow cover all the mountains. But Kanga continue walking on the snow. With more snow piled up, your breathing becomes more difficult. But he don't want to stop and continue climbing the mountain. Soon he realized that it feels like my lungs are frozen. He looked up at the mountain and it took an hour to get him here. He still have far way to go. He thought I had improved a lot, but am I still to go wake? He begin shout to warm up, don't stop. You've overcome even more difficult things than this. I never thought of giving up, but I can't give up. His condition was even getting worse. Soon he realized that he can't go further. He imagined his master standing in front of him. He said, I know you embraced me with compassion and mercy, amidst my frustration, anger, vitality and madness. However, Kanga was grateful for that grace, but he have a duty to fulfill. So he must overcome. His condition was get much worse, his mouth was bleeding, he can't bear it any longer and fell on the ground. He begin cough, he asked himself while lying on the mountain, was it too much? No, I can't die in a place like this. Soon a tiger walk in, smelling his blood he hear someone step and look up, he found a tiger walking toward him. He remember his master words, however, since there has been a sudden increase in disturbance, you must never leave Sealwabong. Kanga remembered that he was definitely climbing in the opposite direction. Did I somehow lose my sense of direction? But he collected his strength and said, even if I don't freeze to death, I'll be killed like this. He looked at the tiger. And ready to fight with him as he have no intention of dying quietly. He stand up and assumed the movement of tiger. He said, whoever wants to kill me, I'll them first. But Tiger was shocked after seeing the red energy flowing out from his body. But Tiger was well aware from his condition. Tiger began to roar, the same red energy was flowing out from Tiger body. Kanga was surprised after see this. He said, ugh. Many tigers have gained the ability to live on human flesh. But the energy this tiger possesses is more fundamental. Red energy was look like a ball in Tiger's mouth. But the energy of a demon that has devoured countless people. Demonic energy was flowing from Tiger and Kanga's body. On the other hand, Jinan went put to find Kanga. He shout, where are you, Kanga? Jinan continue looking for Kong. He shout, where are you? Suddenly he smells something. This is the smell of blood. He run as fast as he can. And finally he reached to Kanga, who was standing alone holding something. Jinan stopped and looked at Kong. He can see something on his hand, that is. He was holding a tiger's hand. Jinan can't believe, he said, did Kong really tear up that great tiger that seems to weigh well over 250 kilograms with his bare hands? Kanga looked at the hand of Tiger and smiles as he got an idea, that looked killing intent and madness. Jinan walked toward him and called him Kong. Kanga was shocked after seeing him nearby. He said, master, and fell on the ground. Jinan come close and sit near him. He smoothly moved his hand on Kang's hair and said, should I be glad that he only lost mind? He pick up Kanga on his shoulder and run as fast as he can. He was thinking something, and continue running. Killing intent. Taoist master Qing Jian. In the long history of Jianhu there were many people who were born with excessive killing intent. Jaina come to him and explained the whole situation and said that's true. Qing Jian said if all of them had fallen into the wrong path, that demonic nature would have been their innate destiny, but fortunately everyone did. There were many people who waked on the orthodox path by receiving teaching from a teacher or by gaining enlightenment on their own. Qing Jian said, so, whether he can do it or not is up to you. He is your disciple. Guide him well. Jinan said yes. And said back then that explosive killing intent was definitely not normal. And remember everything that he saw. And said, I hope I'm worrying for nothing. He heard that Qing Jian was making noise while he grabbed his shoulder and said, you must be very tired. Qing Jian said, no, given the current situation I haven't been able to sleep much lately because I've been quite busy. Jinan apologies and said I should have returned to the inner temple and helped out. Qing Jian consoled him and said, don't worry about it. It's an internal matter and I and the sect leader are in charge of it anyway. Unless it is a big issue we won't summon you. So think about how you should teach your first disciple. He poured the tea in the cup. Jinan said thank you. Jinan came back to Kanga and said, at any rate, I know you said that it possesses excessive killing intent, but this is truly beyond imagination. 3 days have passed since he caught that tiger, but I can still see the darkness between his eyebrows. You have taken in quite a troublesome disciple. But Kanga was lying unconscious. Jinan laughed and said, is there any disciple who is easy to handle? Since we're fated to meet, I will. Just dinny best to teach him. He shake his head, yeah, there's no need for me to talk about again. Kong make a movement. Jinan said, the last descendant of the great Bailey family that was annihilated in the North Demonic Cult's rebellion. Jinan went out from the house to think the great Bailey family, who served as a strong defense line along with our Kunlun sect, would end up like that. It's truly pity. The members of the demonic cult and demonic path. The energy activate and Kong was going to attack at Jinan as he was dreaming of some else. He grabbed the chair and throw it away. He was going to grab Qin Jane's neck, but Jinan grabbed his hand and moved him away. And said, "You punk. What is the meaning of this?" Kang wake up and said. Who Jinan understand that he was dreaming of something and asked Kang to sleep some more. Jinan apologies. And said I was in hurry so I forget to tell you in advance. Qin Jian didn't understand and asked him what do you mean. Jinan said this child responds instantly to the demon. Not just demonic chi but he lost control instantly when he hears even the word demonic. I don't know if the death of his parents and siblings affected him or he was just born with it. Still seeing how he reacted almost instinctively I don't think it's the later. Both was looking at Kanga. Qin Jian said is it what it means to destroy and execute righteousness? Qin Jian said I came here to take a look at my martial nephew but I almost ended up embarrassing myself. Jinan said I'm ashamed of myself. I will sure to teach him a lesson later. Qin Jian said it's alright. Get some rest too. I will buy often. 2 days later at the hill area there was a house where Kang and Jinan was staying. Jinan went to check Kang. He was sitting on the bed, his hair was covering his face. Jinan said are you up? Jinan was surprised to see him, it's like he is wearing mask. Because Kang was giving a raging expression and can't see his raging expression in front of death and demons. Jinan said have you come to your senses? Kang was unable to understand. Jinan said don't push yourself, there are injuries everywhere on your body so you need to rest. And sit on the chair. It has not been long since we've established our master-disciple relationship but I never thought I was lacking as your master. Kang lowered his head as he was ashamed about what he did. Jinan said but now, I'm not sure whether or not I have the qualification to become your master and whether or not I'm capable of teaching anyone at all. Kang said is that so? Jinan shouted with anger, are you aware that you almost died? Kanga was embarrassed and said yes. Jinan continued talking, you must have encountered that man-eating tiger while climbing the mountain. Given your current condition, you would have risked your life just by climbing the mountain. So when the tiger appeared you would not have been able to even move. Kanga silently listening and relying yes. Jinan continue asking him, did you feel the demonic seed in that man-eating tiger's killing intent or something? The red energy began to flow from his body. Kang was trying to control but he can't, the energy cover him from surrounding. Jinan see him and he begin to throwing his energy. Kang was surprised after seeing his master's energy. The teapot was broke by the energy flowing from Jinan's body. He hit the table with his hand and said, how dare you emit killing intent in front of your master? Aren't you going to withdraw it immediately? He break the table and the side desk. Kang said, I can feel a tremendous amount of pressure. But to think there's no harm done to me. This is the divine Taoist art of the Kunlun sect's elder master Qingxiu. Jinan said, I held it in because I knew your mind was cloudy but I can't stand still any longer. I have no intention of understanding your sadness and siblings half-heartedly. But if you keep putting yourself at risk like this, I will teach you a lesson. The heartbreak and despair from losing your family. I won't offer superficial sympathy or pity you. Jinan become angry and said, but if you continue to push yourself recklessly like this I won't hesitate to scold you. How can you be so reckless? Do you think you'd have a bright future if you risked your life? Or did you assume you'd recover so quickly? Kanga was listen everything silently. Jinan continue scold him, how can you even be proud to treat yourself so recklessly? Kang said it's meaningless. Jinan can't understand what is he trying to say. Kang said, my heart belongs to me. My heart and feeling, and I am not obligated to share that with you, master. Jinan got angry and said, so what you're saying is, you will disregard the teaching of master, and are you willing to throw away your life as you did in the past? Kang calmly said, I have no intention of opposing the master while I am receiving teachings. However, in my personal time kindly refrain from becoming involved. Jinan said, are you suggesting that the connection between a teacher and a student is merely a contractual arrangement? Our bond as a master and disciple is governed by fate, not something so trivial. The relationship between a master and a disciple is a mutual exchange of life's lesson and learning. The connection intertwined in the heavens is as significant as blood ties. This made Kang silent. Jinan stand up and said, so, do you want to exterminate the demons? After hearing about demons the energy began to run in Kang's body, his eyes shrink, he was trying to hold. Jinan said that reaction is almost instinctive, just the mention of demon and you can't keep your composure, can you? Kang said please stop, as he was trying hard to control. Jinan got angry, and said what kind of nonsense is this, look at you talking back to your own master. Can you really not restrain yourself upon the mention of demons? The energy was waving. Kong was trying his best to control. He shouted, I said stop, it's like the stream of red energy coming out from his body. Jinan was burst in anger and said, you insult child, answer me when I'm speaking to you. Kong was begin to attack at Jinan, but Jinan knows how to stop him, so he just sitting and watching his movement. Kong said, my body is moving on its own. The energy spiraling out of control. Kong was scared that if this continues master could get injured. Jinan closed his fist and punch on the hand of Kong. An ultimate energy was flowing from Jin's hand. Kanga was shocked to see this. Jinan hit Kong and he fell on the ground. He make noise due to pain. He said, what happened? Jinan was looking like an angel who was sitting on the chair wearing white clothes. Kong folded himself and crying with pain. Jinan said, that brat, although his hand threatened to strike, his face tells a different story. His eyes at that moment looked bewildered and he tried hard to suppress his killing intent. Jinan said, did you say you're going to exterminate the demon with those pathetic skills of yours? Kanga was laying on the floor with shame. He said stop because the energy was blowing in his body again. He asked Jinan, I can't control my killing intent, if you keep doing this my body will react again. Jinan got angry and said, how dare you, you don't have the skills, your body is a mess and you don't even have the right attitude to save your life. Kong was trying to control the energy. Jinan shout, go ahead and tell me, you believe you can rid the world of all its demons in this state. You're a brat who doesn't have pathetic and thinks too highly of himself. Kong was unable to control this time to the ball of energy move faster. Kong stepped forward to attack at Jin. But Jinan throw his move, it hit Kong badly and again he fell on the ground badly. But the flow of energy was not stop, it continue coming out of his body and he again stand up and run faster to attack at Jinan. Jinan use his hand to stop him. He slapped at Kang's head and he fell on the floor badly. Jinan shout, answer me. The energy make Kong angry, he said shut up and moved to attack at Jin. Kong said, I came at him countless times, I fell hard on the ground countless times. How many times must I struggle? Until I finally understood. All I had left within was a whirlpool of rage and sorrow. A toxic mix of loathing and despair. Kong finally accept his defeat and laying on the floor with shame. Jinan said, how does that make you feel? Right now you can't even leave a scratch on me. Kong was sitting in front of him, lower his head. Jinan said, it's impossible for you to destroy the demon. Kong was speechless. Even when I hear the word demon, my killing intent doesn't come out. Kong was crying badly, he looked in his hand and said, why am crying? What have you done to me? Jinan said, have you calmed down now? I've extracted the lingering resentment and unchecked killing intent from you, it might be temporary though. Kong said, so, then why am I shedding tears? Jinan sit down and tell him, because that's what you truly feel. Laugh when the moment calls for laughter, cry when the moment calls for tears. Prioritize one thing at one time. He point his heart, and then his head, the rest will follow in due course. Don't overthink or attempt to grasp everything all at once. Experience it with your heart. Kanga closed his fist and said, my heart. Jinan stand up and said, that's right, we're only trying to get rid of something that does not belong in this world. In time your heart grows to encompass the entire world, you will finally grasp the meaning of my words today. Kanga looks up and said, the whole world. Jinan said, Kong, what do you truly desire? Kong said, demons. To eradicate every last one of them. Jinan take a brief look and said, so, what must you do? Kong finally understand that for this he must become stronger. Jinan said, and how do you plan to achieve that? Kong replied, by learning and truly understanding myself. Jinan asked him, is there a difference between learning and understanding? Kong said, no there isn't. Then Jinan tell him, I've never taught anyone so I don't know what's appropriate, but brace yourself, I assure you your days will be grueling and intense. Kong gained so much wisdom due to Jinan. Jinan asked him, so, would you like to move forward with me as your master? Kanga said yes. Jinan was glad to hear the answer and he asked Kong to rest up, I'll bring you some porridge. Kong looked at him and he taught a trustworthy person, the only person this world who truly cares for me, people refer to such a man as a master. 1 year later, at the coldest mountain, Kong was practicing martial arts with his master. Jinan said, the chi in your lower dantian has already increased a lot. Given 3 more years, you'll have the prowess to outshine your peers. Kong was happy to know that. Jinan tell him more about his practice. He said, however, this type training can increase the quantity of martial power, but its quality might diminish. Kong was looked surprised. Jinan continued talking, they say iron strength, thence the more you forget it, but it simply melts when placed in a furnace. This make Kong frustrate and he sit on the ground. Jinan said, you lost. Kong said, I did. Jinan asked him, does it not frustrate you? Kanga reply, I merely acknowledge the outcome. Then Jinan said, I take no joy in defeating own disciple. But, you're too calm. Actually you've endured more than I thought. I assumed you'd last 20 rounds, but you endured 45. You tried to bite your master's ear off in the middle, didn't you? Kanga said, needed to think outside the box. I thought a surprise might throw you off. Jinan laughed as he know that Kong has no intention for that. He said it's actually clever, but not very honorable. Kong said, I'd rather play dirty and live than die with dignity. Jinan trying to tease Kong, he said, sometimes, I think you've got no charm at all. He advised him to focus on controlling your chi. You'll face challenges alone soon. He surprised to see Kong, as he commenced meditation. Jinan assumed that he has grown so much he's become far more humane than before. But there is one thing that concerned him. His talent for killing, his ability to turn martial arts into lethal moves marks him as a potential top-tier assassin. When he using his talent and big energy appears behind him. Even high level won't survive if they make a mistake against him. When it comes to a talent for killing, there ain't one who can match Kong, though I've never allowed him to unleash it. It looks like the breakthrough could happen in just a few months. He remember his fight with Kong due to demon's energy, as his master, even if I'm not entirely pleased with such talent. He think I shouldn't suppress this child's gifts, should I? Instead, I should guide him properly when that talent comes to fruition. He take a look at Kong and think that should be enough. I have faith he will see my intention clearly and act wisely. When Kong finish his meditation, Jinan asked him, did you manage to stabilize your IQ? Kong reply, yes. Jinan said, you're quick. Let's go inside and rest. But want to ask him something. Him stopped him by calling him master. I became your disciple and a servant for Kunlun. I've been wondering why haven't you taught me Kunlun's martial arts? Jinan smiles and said, do you want to learn Kunlun martial arts? But Kong was just curious. Jinan tell him that Kunlun is a place where Taoism, martial arts, and people reside, but in Kunlun, you don't have to learn Kunlun's martial arts to become one of us. Also, the martial arts of the Bai Li clan that you learned are focusing on generating output, because Kunlun's martial arts are focused on stability. If I teach you willy-nilly, you might ruin your fundamentals. Kong understand everything now. Jinan tell him, when you get to the level where you could learn how to do it well, when you get complete control of your chi. If the day comes when you're able to do that, Conan asked me, if it's the right time. And it will not take you long. At the mountains there was house, and in the house there was a man who was checking the nerves of an old man. He seems like an physician. Old man asked him, how is it? He was Kunlun's headmaster Chonghyo. Jinan the physician said, it's hard to say. He rug his forehead with his 2 fingers. And tell him the Demonic cult used a different kind of poison than what we in Zhongyuan are familiar with. He was physician, Baek Hyun. He continued talking and tell him, they say that both academics and martial arts aim for the same goal, but this poison is so unusual, it's as if it's not from this world. Chongjio, Jinan said, as expected. And ask him, what type of poison is that? Physician Baek Hyun said, it looks like some kind of latent poison, but I can't be sure about tea either. This kind of potion gradually eats away your vitality. Since it hasn't caused damage in other areas, it was discovered late. It seems like an blue demon's energy was burning him from inside. Jinan asked him, still, I can use my internal energy and martial arts without issues. But physician Baek Hyun warned him that without knowing the type of poison, making an antidote is impossible. To think that the renowned Kunlun's headmaster can't detoxify the poison, and then, even after you called me, I'm also unable to help. It's frustrating that all I can do is monitor your condition. Jinan understand that he have short time left. He asked physician to tell him the truth. How long do Inha left? While pureeing the tea in cup. Physician tell him, at the very least 1 year. At most, 3 years. Jinan repeat his words, 1 to 3 years. Baek Hyun tell him, if we had detected this poison sooner, we might have been able to slow its progression even if we couldn't neutralize it. Jinan said, essentially, we're racing against the clock and falling behind. Physician Baek was sad. He called him headmaster. And apologized that he was unable to help right now. Jinan stopped him to doing this and said, it's okay. I've lived a long life, over 70 years. Whether it's 1 year or 3 more, I'll make the most of it, so don't carry the burden of guilt. And after that, Jinan began to drink his tea. He said, you've done your best, please keep this confidential, especially from the other elders. Baek said, I understand. He greet him and leave the room. Jinan put his cup on the table and begin to think. 1 year, he stared at the empty cup and said, I need to start planning for my retirement. After some time, Chong Geometry appeared at the door and said, headmaster, it's me, Chong Geometry. Jinan said, please come in. Chong Geometry walked in the room and asked Jinan, what did the physician say? Jinan didn't tell him the truth and asked him, do not worry too much. He said, as long as I take good care of my health it'll be fine. Chong Geometry said, that's a relief. Jinan said, for the upcoming elder conference, make sure everybody attends. We have to bring in fresh water to clean up the residence in advance too. Chong Geometry surprised and said that's about the disciple from Bailey. Jinan assumed that Geometry was surprised. He asked him is there any problem. Chong Geometry remember everything about Kanga as he think he is not normal like them, but he turned it around and said no there's no problem I shall take my leave, but he think is it going to be alright. At the same time Kong walked from the stairs toward Bailey. 2 years have already passed since Kong from the Bailey clan became a disciple of Chongsu Jinan. Chongsu Jinan was giving him training at the mountains. He realizes that Kang's swordsmanship still carries killing intent. It seems like he has no intention of changing that. Kong closed his eyes and said that's correct. Chongsu Jinan sighs. And said killing isn't the only solution. Kang-ah asks him in the end martial arts are often used for killing aren't they? As expected, it's clear I don't belong to Taoism. Chongsu Jinan reply you brat it does not matter if you follow the Taoist path or not. What mattered is saying truth to yourself and your principles. This disciple is insensitive and troubles his master to no end, if you know that's enough you punk. Chongsu Jinan laughed and grabbed his beard and said nevertheless you have become a disciple of Kunlun that I can be proud of. Kong said that means. Jinan looked at him and said time to head to Kunlun sect. Kong was standing in front of Kunlun sect. He looks up at the building of Kunlun sect and thought it's massive. Is this what makes Kunlun one of the great sections? I'll read the master's letter once I arrive. He opened the letter and began to read it. He shocks after read, Jinan right we were supposed to go together but the headmaster had something separate to discuss. I've already informed headquarters so it's fine. As for the leftover meat soup all you have to do is heat it up, don't let it leak on the way understand. Kong imagine his master he takes a deep breath. And head toward Kunlun. When he reaches at the door someone stopped him. There were 2 men standing in front of him. One of them said you can't enter without prior appointment or a pass. Kong introduced himself to them, my name is Kong from Bailey clan disciple of Chongsu Jinan, I was told he made arrangements for me. One of them was surprised to see that he is a disciple of Master Jinan, and the other one said oh that's correct you may proceed. Kong was surprised as they letting him in so easily. He found something suspicious. He looked around and thought what's going on, is there some kind of system spread throughout this area to keep out intruders? Then he smiles after see the Kunlun sect inside. He said what an interesting sect. He asks himself is it here I heard it was a small sanctum. He saw the black dragon sanctum and found it's big than he expected. He hears some noise. He said someone's here. There was a girl who cleaning the floor. She said why do I have to be stuck here like this? I am not some kind or servant saying they are short-handed and ordering me on errands. It's all because of that jerk Unhang. Even though he's a boy he just losing the match. She was looking angry. Then she saw Nag was standing in front of her. Both of them was standing silently staring at each other. The girl asks Kong who are you? Kong look at the sect and ask her is this Black Dragon Sanctum? Girl said yes that's right. Then the girl asks him I heard Chongsu Jinan and his disciple were arriving here at Black Dragon Hermitage. Kong said seems I'm in the right place then. Girl screamed as she was shocked to see him. She said no way. She bows in front of him and said welcome senior brother. Kong asks her what do you mean senior brother that's a title I'm not familiar with. The girl scared and said I'm dead. Then she began to cry and said I never thought he would come while I was bad, he isn't going to let it slide right it's gonna be disaster. She asks him please forget what I said I didn't mean it. She was lowering her head with shame. She was Kunlun sect second generation disciple. Her name is Unryong. She asks Kong a favor please don't tell master if I get kicked out of here I have nowhere else to go. Kong said I don't know what is it but I get it you can go. Unryong was happy to hear that. She thanked him. Kong said what a crazy and strange kid. The next day. Someone serves meal to Kong and ask him have a meal senior brother. Kong look at the meal. It's Unryong who served the meal to him. Kong asked her did the master tell you to bring me a meal? Unryong think and said it's not like that. I just keep thinking about yesterday. Kong said since you brought it, I'll eat it but don't feel obliged to do this next time. Unryong was happy to hear and said yes. She thinks that's a relief I guess he is not the type of hold grudges. Then she gained some peace and excused herself. After having meal Kong began to practice martial arts. Someone appears besides him and said since when did the Kunlun style martial arts become so aggressive and the bloodthirsty? Kong looked behind to see who was he. He was Jinan Kang's master in Kunlun's sect. He said changing a martial style to this degree it's practically an art form in itself. Kong was happy to see him and greet him bowing his head and called him master. And asked him you have arrived. Jinan said yes, it feels like ages since my last conference just thinking about it gives me a headache. He asks Kong how do you like this place? This is the place your ancestors used to reside in. Kong closed his eye as he was disappointed. He said it's too spacious. Jinin said it's too spacious indeed. Living here alone would be lonely. Kong said really? Jinin tell him we might have to remain here for at least 6 months but possibly up to 2 years. That's quite a long time. We have no choice, we're hunting down the last remnant of the demons. After hearing the word demon, Kang's inner energy begin to move. The energy covers him. Jinin was silently watching him. Kong closed his fist and he hit the ground. But he controls himself. He said, is that so? Jinin console him and said it's challenging to entirely quell the abrupt surges of your killing intent. You've exhibited commendable control. Well done. Kong said I still have long way to go. Jinin laughed and said this punk. And ask him when are you leaving? Kong, reply I think I'll leave in about 10 days. Jinin was surprised to hear 10 days. Kong said in that case please provide detailed guidance for the next 10 days. Jinin burst into laughter. And said of course I will punch you hard so be prepared. 10 days later Kong learned Solar Alari stance, Ember refinement technique. And Chi alignment form. He found ignite. Bursting in fire. That's the Bailey clan's secret meditation technique. There was a time when one of the great trinities allowed them to take one of the honored seats among the 7 great clans. Jean was looking so confident as he gains heavenly fire skills. Throughout the Bailey clan's history the clan leaders have summoned their full strength creating the masterpiece. It's one of Bailey's most powerful martial arts, the ferocious fire energy. Heavenly fire skills harbor a secret that amplifies the chi of anyone who masters it. Yet if I can't harness my innate chi. Kong was bleeding from mouth. He thinks I'll simply become a powerful but mindless demon. Perhaps embarrassing Kunlun's teachings is vital after all. I can't wait for my master to return. Un Ryong was looking at him behind. He called him senior. You don't seem to be feeling well. Is everything alright? Kong coughed and said no it's nothing, so what brings you here? Un Ryong said I have brought your meal. Kong looked aside and said alright thank you. Un Ryong was looking a bit sad from his behavior. She said I know there's no need for you to thank someone of my low rank, but isn't it basic courtesy to thank those who assist you regardless of their rank? Kong looked at her while his is opening the door. Kong said if it'll make you feel better, I can say thank you. Un Ryong was happy to hear that she said well thank you for even considering it. I am so flattered. Now that I mention it, where's the elder? Kong tell her he descended the mountain. Un Ryong was surprised and asked him why did thieves come by. Kong smiled and said do you think an elder would come down just because of some petty thieves? This is lot for just one person. Come share this meal with me. Un Ryong was a bit shy. She thinks he's quite the character. Initially I thought he's a bit intimidating but he doesn't care as much about formalities and ranks as I expected. Kong was hearing everything as she voicing her thoughts. He said you do know you're voicing all your thoughts out loud right? But In Ryong didn't really that she said oops. Did you hear senior, we are all supposed to meet up at the arena by midday tomorrow. Kong was surprised to hear about arena. He said understood. She asks him aren't you curious about what's going on? The headmaster has an important announcement to make. He told us to gather everyone without exception. She points him. Kong said by headmaster you mean? He's called Chonghyo Jinin. Kong closed his eyes. And said I think we need to get ready. Un said really but I haven't finished eating yet. Kong tell her that there's a distinguished guest coming. And he put his chopsticks on the table. Un Ryong was surprised to hear that he is in there. Kong said please come in. Un Ryong shout I didn't even feel anyone's presence. And she looks behind to know who was it. Someone walked in the room and said so you are Bailey clan's last survivor. He is Kunlun sect's headmaster ancient dragon sword god. Chongjio Jinin. Kong smiles. And Un Ryong said I will go first and she leaves the room. Headmaster walk in and sit in front of him. Kong think this is person Kunlun sect's headmaster. Headmaster Jinin grab a cup and think even when a thunderstorm rages and rain fall upon him, he will never waver or change. He is as unyielding as a boulder. And he asks Kong it's been 2 years since you became a disciple of Chongsu at last, our paths cross. And he put the empty cup on the table. Saying I'm busy would come across as a mere excuse. I'm sorry, I did not come to greet you sooner. Kong instantly said headmaster you don't have to apologize for that considering age and seniority. I should be the one who apologizes. Headmaster Jinin said, it's fine, after all, fate has brought us together, rendering past slights insignificant. I am not here to discuss who's at fault, so let's not dwell on. He asks Kong is the abode to your liking? Kong reply it is comfortable. Headmaster ask him how do you find Kunlun. Kong tell him it's breath of fresh air. Headmaster surprise, and ask him fresh air, you say? Pray tell, in what way? Kong tell him it's snow. It's akin to freshly fallen snow. Headmaster was looking surprised. Kong tell him more at Sealwa Bong there exist only my masters and my foot, prints. However, within this palace, countless foot, prints etch the snow that it exudes life. Headmaster smiles and said can you discern energy from the footsteps? Kong said these past 2 years spent alongside my master were invaluable, however I sense a vibrant energy and the essence of humanity here. Headmaster ask him were you lonely? Kong reply no, not at all. Headmaster smiles and said your master has always been a unique character possesses a unique talent to elicit smiles from his fellow disciples. And he takes the teacup. Kong said you seem to have inherited some of that exceptional talent as well your power formidable easily comparable to seasoned warriors am I correct in assuming that your style belongs to the Bailey clan? And ultimate blue energy covers him from surrounding. Headmaster tell him that it's a shame to wate such power there must be a reason why you haven't yet mastered Kunlun's inner spirit technique. Your lack of a formal position here might be a design to help you focus on mastering technique. However, to secure a position within Kunlun, it is enough that you familiarize yourself with our martial arts. However, to truly be a part of Kunlun, one must master Kunlun's martial arts. While it's not unheard of for an outsider to become an elder, mastering Kunlun's martial arts can indeed be considered a difficult challenge. Kong said I am aware and he grabbed the cup filled with tea. He said nevertheless, I find myself undeserving of the responsibility of a clan, also, I harbor intention to pursue an headmaster said not interested in pursuing a position. Kong answer him that simply because I lack an official title, it doesn't mean I'm not dedicated to Kunlunium content being a Kunlun disciple. Headmaster said I see. Kunlun remains Kunlun without the need for high positions that I in fact, despite being a Taoist, I am more concerned with my own desires than a youth yet to receive a position I wish we could talk further, but I have to leave. And he stands up from his chair. He said however please come visit Shangqing Palace once in while no matter how busy I am, I can spare some time for tea with a disciple. Understood. Kong was confused he can't understand why he said that. He found that's odd. He taught during the conversation, I felt something strange. What's this feeling of unease? In the afternoon someone said stop. He is the guard who stopped Kong while he was entering in the Kulun's sect. He said that's all for today thank you for hard work. Everyone was laying on the ground seems like they work too much today. One of them said I thought I was going to die from exhaustion. According to Master Jin Shan, we have to keep this up for another year or so. One of them said Are you going to visit that Bailey clan a senior again? Ryong said yes, it's quite a bother honestly. She tells her, since he is always practicing alone and meditating, I at least need to bring some food. The other girl said, really? I thought you were learning martial arts there separately. Ryong said he's the type who does everything alone, he continues to only practice and then eat all I do is bring his meal to him. She shows her his hand sign to not talk more. And said besides, I think senior is a cold person when we talk, it feels like I am talking to a tree. Sometimes I get really frustrated when I'm the only one talking. Suddenly Kong appears from the back and said I'm listening. Ryong was shocked as she didn't expect him, she said senior. Everyone bows in front of him except Ryong and they spoke. Welcome senior. Ryong asks him senior what brings you here? Kong tell her that I was going to the arena the girls behind them whispering what is there such a young senior? Is that the from the Bailey clan? Kong was leaving for arena Ryong said I was going to personally take you there. But Kong refused her offer saying that no need to escort this troublesome senior, though. Ryong said you're being petty. It's just a misunderstanding really. Everyone watching them from behind. They start whispering again they seem very close. Is he really a senior? What kind of senior is he anyways? I guess he is not normal either how can he become friends with her? Ryong suddenly shocked when a big girls gang block her way they said, hey where are you going in such a hurry? Don't we still have some unfinished business? At the arena hall everyone is talking what are you folks planning to do? You mean the Samcheong swordsman teat? Yes, if you're under 30 of age, you can take the test regardless of rank Samcheong swordsman is Kunlun's representative who will eventually serve as a vanguard in Zhongyan. It's a similar position to Shaolin Arhat and the Plum Blossom Sword. We bestow upon Samcheong swordsmen a private training facility, sanctum, or abode for dwelling should you distinguish yourself through exceptional martial prowess, alchemical accomplishments, or adeptness in learning the wisdom of our elders. A position surpassing that of ordinary disciples. You will have all the support you need. Kong said the offer sound good but isn't this a bit sudden? There were a sign of two swords. There will be no problem if this policy were gradually integrated over time. It seems too hurried and seems extreme. Kong lensing all the whispering, he said, but it's no of my concern. Someone called him. Hey, there were a young man who said, "Are you Kong from Bailey clan?" He is Kunlun clan first generation disciple. His name is Jin Hui. Kong said, "Yes, I am." Jin Hui thought he's not exactly being rude, but he asks him, "Your master Chongsu's disciple, correct? You heard you're new here. We haven't met before, have we?" "My Buddhist name is Jin Hui. I'm currently under the tutel age of Elder Cheon Geometry." Kong think, if he bears the name Jin, does that mean we belong to the same generation? He introduces himself to Jin and said, "I'm Kong from the Bailey clan." Jin smile and think, look at this guy. He said, "Do you not want to talk to me?" Kong tell him, "I never said that." Jin asks him, "Do you usually stay in the Black Dragon Sanctum? Have you ever led the training of your juniors?" Kong reply, "No, I haven't." Smiles and said, "Alright, you said it." He stands up from the chair and said, "Very well. It hasn't been long since you arrived here, I'll take your words for it. Make sure you get some rest while you can. Even you haven't secured an official position, you still have responsibilities as a first-generation disciple. Naturally, you must also demonstrate your martial prowess. Let's see each other often." Kong found that strange. He come by himself and then leave. In the afternoon, Kong was sitting on the stream side doing meditation. He takes a deep breath. He found that the heavenly QI keeps getting strong with time. The growing strength of the heavenly QI is positive news, but the issue is that my QI is not as compatible heavenly QI. The heavenly QI stirred by my own QI is gradually causing my killing intent to increase. If this persists, within 5 years the balance between the two chis will be broken. Kong closed his fist and said, "If that happens, I will experience QI deviation, which will take lead of his body." He thinks, "I must enhance my compatibility with the heavenly QI, but the 3 techniques from Kunlun my master taught aren't enough." He was looking a bit sad. He thought it's time to go to Miziangak. This is where all of Kunlun's martial arts scrolls are kept. I can learn how to better balance my QI. On his way to Miziangak, someone said greeting to the senior. When he looks back to see who was it, there was a girl who introduced herself to him. She said, "I'm called Unseen." Kong asked her, "Do you have something to discuss?" She said, "About that." He again asks her, "Are you planning to visit Ryong?" She replies, "Yes." Then she said, "No, I'm not." Kong said, "Is that so?" She bows to respect him and said, "In that case I'll take my leave." Kong said, "Okay." Kong found that's odd. In the training hall, senior asked disciples, "I thought someone was absent earlier when I saw the disciples training. Is she causing trouble?" Kong reached at the Miziangak. He was reading a book with his full attention. He found something meaningful which impressed him. He thinks the might of Kunlun it's unparalleled. Honestly, seeing it again. And he opened the paper again. Even though there are many valuable martial arts scrolls in the Bailey clan's secret library, Kunlun's martial arts are on a different level in terms of both quality and quantity. If only I could gain access to the 3rd floor where the scrolls of their most treasured secret techniques are stored. However, to harmonize with the heavenly QI, these 2 martial arts scrolls are sufficient. Twin Dragon Guide bridging heavenly and earthly spirit, and Unified Triad clearing the path to tranquility. These are unorthodox martial arts that prove challenging even for Kunlun's disciples. Right now, I need these 2 scrolls more than any other secret techniques. He packs the scrolls to take them with him. Since scrolls from Muzangak cannot be removed from the premises, it looks like I'll have to memorize them all. Kong study at Muzangak all night and day. He thinks should be able to figure this out right. The latter part of the heavenly fire skill cannot be altered. Modifying the characteristics and fundamentals of the martial arts would be detrimental. He thinks it would be more beneficial to incorporate the breathing stance from Twin Dragon Guide bridging heavenly and earthly spirit at the beginning and change refinement technique to Unified Trade clearing the path tranquility. When he went out, he found Unseen. Seems like she was waiting for him outside. She greets him. Kong said, "Yes, you've worked hard." When he was about to leave, Kong hold his arm and said, "One moment, what happened to your hand?" Seeing scream with pain. Kong said, "Tell him not only here lower waist hip joint, there's also problem with your muscles. Seeing how your gait is worse than yesterday, there must be something wrong with your back as well." Seeing have no idea how he found that she looked surprised. She said this even Master Jin San didn't find about it. Kong asked him, "Did you train in this state?" Seeing reply, "Yes, did." Kong said, "You don't have to yell, no need to exert yourself." And ask he, "Did you spar?" Seeing was too surprised after hearing all this, as she was unable to reply. Kong, ask he, "Seeing like you didn't hurt yourself from training too much, it's impossible to be injured to this extent unless you've been hit." Kong take a brief look. He said, "Looking at your injuries, we can't call that sparring either." Sian gets emotional as no one except him noticed that. Kong asked her, are you going to visit An Ryong again? Sian said yes, senior. Kong said this path leads to the medical hall where the physician resides, right, and he asked her to lead the way. Sian afraid and apologized to him. Kong gets very angry. As he was trying to control his anger, he asked her, we're going to the medical hall. Sian said there's nothing serious. On the cafe hall, Jin Hui was sitting with someone. He said, I am not worried since you're doing a good job. How is the disciple training progressing? The man said it's going well. Jin Hui said, you've managed to impart a valuable lesson to my unruly disciple. In the future she wouldn't pose any more problems for you. The young man who was sitting in front of Jin said, but senior, is it really okay? Jin said, what do you mean? Young man said, stopping the rumors is not exactly difficult, however what do we do when she's awake? Jin said, you don't need to concern yourself with that, you just have to say you don't know and I will take care of the rest. The young man said, senior, I think you don't have to go that far, such an extreme measure. But Jin laughed and said, don't worry. It will be enough if we offer a bigger compensation to the victim. Young was disappointed from Jin. He said, you said you'd take care of it discreetly. But as expected, mentioning it to the elders is, Jin got anger and said, junior. He looks so scary. He said, after the war our situation was in chaos. Moreover, the headmaster had to introduce an unprecedented Samcheong swordsman policy in this situation. The U-man looks aside as he was disagreeing with Jin's decision. Jin said, must you burden the headmaster with concerns over a mere conflict between the younger disciples? The top disciple of the medical hall will personally attend to her in an exclusive room that ordinary disciple could only dream of. Despite enduring severe injuries, she will recover swiftly. Yun-an said, even though what you're saying is true, it doesn't sit well with me. Jin said, there's no need to fuss and trouble the elders over such disputes. Just let it pass, do you understand? Young man said, if you put it that way I shall continue. Jin replies, I'm sorry you had to worry for nothing. But there's one thing you should also keep in mind. The sun was bright, but if it's too bright you can't look directly at it. That's why only when it is veiled with enough clouds, can we truly discern its form. Young man closes his eye. Even if he doesn't want to do that, he still has no choice. Jin said, if it's already swept under the rug it's better to keep it that way, that's my philosophy, my experiences in the world. Young man said, well. It's not exactly a matter that we can boast about. On the other hand, Kong went to see Ryong. She was in pain. Sian tell him that her entire body is covered in bruises and her left lung had sustained severe damage. She might die if she didn't get treated on time. Kong said she's in a critical condition. He asked her what happened, but Sian stands silent. After a silent gap, Sian tell him Ryong and the other haven't been in a good relationship since the beginning. She's a nice person but can be loud, which some kids don't like. Her skills also make others jealous. We can see Ryong was good at practicing. Sian tell him that there's one time the others picked a fight with her and she defeated them all. Because of that now I who's close with Ryong. Kong looked back at her. He thinks it looked like An Ryong confronted some disciples for bullying An Sian and got attacked by them. No matter how talented she is, it's difficult to win if she carelessly took them all by herself. An Sian was look so scared. Kong asked her any consequences for them. Sian tell him there's none. Kong was very angry. He thinks In Hang the instigator is a favorite of one of the masters. A master favor. He knows that he is the one who is giving training to all the disciple. And disciple favored the same master often receive special attention and training. Just like my relationship with my master. So is there a distinction between favored disciples and the regular ones based on the power? Kong asked Sian that is there an elder aware of this. Sian tell him that Mater Jin-san was aware. Kong said, then who's the master of this Hang kid? Sian was scared again. After a silent gap she said, did I speak too much? Senior Bai Li is the youngest among the seniors and Master Chongsu is also not here at the moment. Kan said, what if I just make the problem bigger? If they find out I told you, just trust me and let me know. So, who is An Hang's master? Kong got very angry and suspicious. Sian was shocked, but she makes a brave move and tell him that he's the disciple of Headmaster Chong Geometry. He is Master Jin Hui. Sian was crying and she think that she said too much. Kong said if she hadn't received timely treatment for her injury it could lead to serious complications later. Sian had no idea that it would turn up like this. Kong asked her to go get treated here with An Ryong, and he will directly talk with Senior Jin-san. Sian can't believe she said what. A senior trainer found that An Sian was not here in the training session. Someone tells him that it seems after every session she heads to the medical hall. Senior said medical hall. The disciple said yes. Senior understands that. Why is she heading toward the medical hall? Someone said, should I bring him here? Senior said it's fine, he will come eventually. Fellow disciple, let's start from the unified stance, assume your position. From one solitary crane. Senior begins to watch trainer's moves. Then someone from behind said, interesting. Senior was scared to see Kong here. As he had no eyes since when was there someone behind him. Kong said their execution might be rough, but they seem to know when to channel their strength. They need to master the basics before moving on to advanced techniques, they seem quite diligent. Senior asks him, who are you? Kong introduces himself. It seems like Senior already hear about him, he said that Junior from Bai Li clan. He tells him that I've heard a lot about you. I should have visited sooner but my schedule has been packed. Kong said it's fine, I'm the one who's late. I should have come to look for you first. Senior stops him by giving hand sign, and said at least we ended up meeting like this, let's not dwell on it. Kong thinks Senior Jin Hui made him sound cold and aloof, he doesn't seem that way. Maybe he's not so bad. He said the kids are quite promising. Even though there are a few troublemakers considering their age they're top-notch. Senior said, but I don't say that lightly because we are not allowed to be complacent. Kong said, however. I've noticed there are fewer apprentices lately. Senior was looking a bit sad. Kong said, are any of them unwell? Senior looks around and said, that is none of your concern, Junior. Kong said, I didn't mean to sound harsh. Senior asked him then. Kong said, it's a good thing I came check. And you have no right to call yourself a master. Senior was afraid from him, he immediately said what? When he looks behind, they were no one. He said this, what do you? Then a girl from behind calls him master. He thinks was I hallucinating? Then he goes to meet Jin Hui but he was in another world. Jin Hui call him Junior, are you listening to me? Isn't it the time for you to be teaching? Young man tells him that for the first time in a while I told them to do a self-study session. Jin Hui said really, they must be thrilled to have a break once. Young man said yes, right. But it seems like he was hiding something from him. Jin asks him, why are you so jittery, are you scared of something? Young man looks scared, but he didn't say anything. Then he turns it around and said, I just can't wait to drink the tea you poured, Senior. Jin Hui said, what a boring person. Jin said the tea leaves they provided aren't great. Drinking tea, it's just about the tea itself, the setting, the timing and the temperature all play a role. But the young man didn't listen him, he was thinking about the incident with Kong. He think, did I really imagine it? Before coming here I stopped by Black Dragon Sanctum and nobody's there. Then he grabs the cup and said, wait a minute, on second thought did that guy just appear from nowhere? He was so scared. But Jin Hui has no idea why is he behaving so strange. He asks him, in any case it seems you have something on your mind. Young man apologizes, but Jin insists and said, tell me, I can at least hear you out. Junior said actually, but then he stops. Jin Hui think that was strange and said, Junior Bai Li said those things. Young man said yes, but I don't understand, he appeared out of nowhere, spoke his mind and vanished just like that, even if I have concerns about the kids. Jin Hui fell in deep thinking. Then he said, how would he know anything when he's barely spent any time here? Why would he seek you out? With everything going on in Kunlun right now we don't have time for irrelevant matters. Young man thinks that's right, at Kunlun's current state we can't afford to be LX. Many disciples are working tirelessly to rebuild the struggling Kunlun. But Jin-san and I are the exceptions, if we were cast out it wouldn't make much difference, would it? He closes his fist, at this point it's clear that we can't just rely on the older generation to fight things. Jin Hui said, whatever comes your way try not to let it get to you too much. Even Junior Bai Li were to know of the situation nothing would change, but if Elder Chong Su were around maybe things could be different. Finally young man gained relief, he smiles and said right. Jin Hui said, why are you so anxious, feeling guilty? Young man said, it seems like it. Jin Hui advised him to being heartless. Sometimes you have to be willing to make small sacrifices for the greater good. I didn't know you'd be this soft-hearted. That'll make it tough when you're given more significant responsibilities later on. Young man was a bit nervous, he said, I guess so. If you out it that way, Senior, I'll do my best to let go of my anxieties. Jin offered him a cup of tea and said, great choice. Drink more tea before you go. But an unknown voice appeared in the room, think they say joy shared doubled and shared sorrow is halved. I'm always curious about what will happen if you do it the other way around. They both look around, who is that? Young man stands up from his place. The voice is coming from the side window of the room. Someone said I'd hear your thoughts on the matter. May I come in? Young man shout, who are you? The person said, consider that my invitation. And walk in the room. Young man was angry, but Jin Hui smiles after see him. He said you arrived sooner than anticipated. He was Kong. He steps in the room. Bailey clans Kong. Young man was scared after see him. He said you. Jin Hui smile and grabbed the cup of tea. He said how rude. Is it so difficult to ask politely? Haven't you learned basic etiquette? Kong said you need to go to the medical hall and apologize. Of course, you have to also take your disciple who's responsible for causing those injuries. Jin Hui said and, Kong tell him to inform your master about the entire incident. Jin Hui was scared now. He said what? You barge in here and start spouting nonsense? He turns his face in other direction. Kong asked him if you look the other way now, you'll really be trash. If you don't understand what I'm saying, then I doubt the teachings of Kunlun. They both look very angry. It seems like a fight will be held soon. Jin Hui said with anger, I was already annoyed when you barged in here uninvited. But now, are you really trying to test my patience? Kong said how much patience you have is no of my concern. I'll say in one more time. Admit your fault, ask for forgiveness, and report the incident. He points him with his finger and order him to do just that. Young man was burst in anger. He said this arrogant punk. But Jin Hui asked him to stop that. Sit down. No matter how angry you are, we should never resort to violence first. Young man wants to fight. He said senior. Jin Hui looked at him with anger and asked him to sit. Don't make a fuss. And he asked Kong, I'm listening to ahead. Kong asked him, can you tell me what we did wrong? I'd like to hear it directly from you. Then he takes a silent gap. After that he said, do you know why I even bothered to give advice to you? Despite not being from Kunlun? It's because I want to believe in this palace that my master consider home. That's why, please show me. Jin Hui and the young man was surprised after hearing that. Kong said even if you makes capable of feeling regret and making amends. Jin Hui take a breath, then he laughs. He said, who do you think you are? You have no right to dictate how things should be in Kunlun. Kunlun is Kunlun, how dare you be so arrogant? Kong become angry. I'm saying this one last time. I won't try to persuade you or offer any more advice. He again points him and asks him to apologize and turn yourself in. Jin Hui take a look at him and then close his eyes. He said, looks like it's of no use even if I were to say I don't know what you're talking about. But truly, if I felt any guilt, wouldn't my face hide it away? Young man was standing with fear. Jin Hui said, you're acting like this because of Un Ryong, the kid you're close, right? Think about it. Is it really that big a deal? He was look like an evil. He asks him, even if you make a scene, how will it help the child? Isn't merely a quarrel among kids? Kong said, my disciple has already harshly scolded the instigator. Life in Ganghai is tough as it is. So, you're saying you won't turn yourself in? Jin Hui got very angry after hearing this. He shouts, didn't you hear what I just said? Kong said, I don't intend to keep listening to your nonsense. Young man shouts, how dare you? We've been patient with you, but your audacity knows no bounds. Do you need a harsh lesson to tone down your arrogance? Kong said, who knows? I doubt I'll change. Kong break the door and run toward the young man to fight. Young man also run, saying this bastard. As he begins to punch Kong, he simply ignores his move and punch him with all his energy. The young man feels far away from him. He was lying on the ground. He taught to think I was brought to my knees to evade his attack. How utterly humiliating. He said, this bastard. Kong looked at his close fist and turn around. Young man was shocked. He said, unbelievable. He's acting like don't even exist. He moves fast to attack Kong from behind. Jin Hui shout, Jin San. But Kong again beat him badly. Young man can't believe. He said, how is this possible? Even Jin Hui stand up from his place. He was shocked to see Kang's energy which was cover him from surrounding. Young man was scream with pain. Kong look at him and land on the ground. Jin Hui said, impressive skills. And clap. Kong looked behind. Jin Hui said, if it's confidence in your abilities making you act out, I can understand. But I won't tolerate any more disrespectful attitude. You should lower your head and ask me for forgiveness now. Bow now, apologize. I won't be too harsh, but don't expect to escape without consequence. In the discussion hall someone said, no, too long ago, I heard you went to meet disciple Bailey. How was he? Headmaster said, he reminds me of my master who said that Taoist might not be needed in the world. Since Taoism is already integrated into people's lives, as a result has become grander than perhaps should be. The act of building temples and reading scriptures might be leading people away from the essence of Taoism, is what my master used to say. Jinan said he always had those unconventional views that would astonish even his disciples. Headmaster said, when I met disciple Bailey, made me think that perhaps my master was right all along. And he takes the cup of tea near his mouth. Jinan thinks seems like he's quite fond of disciple Bailey. He said, nevertheless. Headmaster asks, there is a problem? Jinan gave him a hand sign and said no, it's nothing. It's just that I have a different opinion on him, is all. Headmaster asked him what do you think of disciple Bailey? Jinan said I think he's a dangerous individual. Headmaster repeat his words dangerous you say? And tell him according to Chong Su disciple Bailey has the potential to become the greatest martial artist in the Bailey clan's history. That would have been his path if the incident with the Northern Demonic Sect hadn't occurred. Jinan said however there's a saying that when a monster is born, it's best to nip it in the bud. And after meeting disciple Bailey, I can't help but feel there's truth to that. Headmaster grabbed his beard and said disciple Bailey in my eyes doesn't seem like such a dangerous person. Didn't Chong Su also mention that he has qualities to become a great leader? I understand your concerns even his temperament is difficult to change there's no need to worry excessively. And ask him of course should a problem arise in the future, it's our duty to resolve it promptly, isn't it? Jinan said well you the headmaster and Chong Su are better judges or character than me. Jinan said but senior even if he possesses unparalleled martial arts skills, if his soul is talented, he could very well transform into the most fearsome demon of all, couldn't he? Kong and Jin both were looking at each other with anger. Jin Hui laughed and said how foolish. He looked at the young man and said violence between disciple is prohibited yet you even beat Jin-san into a pulp. Exile might be your best outcome if you're lucky so, apparently you do know it's a grave issue. Suddenly Jin Hui stopped talking he was surprised by something. Kong said you're that violence between the first generation of disciple is a serious problem, yet you're going to ignore the violence between second generation disciples. Jin angrily said what kind of sophistry is this, do you think second generation disciples and those that received the name Jin are of the same situation? Zhang said ignoring the harm you cause to other while being overly concerned about harm to yourself is indeed a narrow-minded way of thinking. Jin asks him what did you say? Kong asks him to come and fight with him with a sign of finger, find these conversations somewhat meaningless. Jin Hui burst in anger, he moves forward saying Kong a bastard. They both begin fighting, Kong think that he's definitely stronger than the previous guy. Jin Hui laughed he make his move to hit Kong and said for someone so confident your movement are lacking. How dare you disregard Kunlun and provoke your senior with these unimpressive skills? He laughed again. He said you might think lightly of us because we've been withdrawn. Then he angrily said but that doesn't give a novice like you the right to disrespect us this way. Headmaster and Jinan was sitting in the conversation hall, they can hear the sound of fighting. Jinan said did you hear that Headmaster? Headmaster said yes that's quite loud. Headmaster tell him it sounds like a group of first generation is sparring. Jinan said but it's too loud. Headmaster finished his tea and said since we don't involve them in Kunlun's important missions they must be frustrated. He said since I'm busy overseeing the disciple who are diligently working outside of Kunlun, I feel like I've neglected them it can't be helped you know it's unavoidable situation. Jinan asked him why don't you gather the disciples together for a discussion sometime soon. You can exchange your thoughts and ideas. Headmaster agreed as this is not a bad idea. They hear the fighting sound again. That's so irritating, Jinan was afraid now. He said by the way I can feel their internal energy from here and the use of a very high martial arts technique. Headmaster stand he said it's not just martial arts I sense killing intent. We have to go and check. On the other room Jin Hui and Kang's fighting was in high level, Jin laughed and said got you, Kong can't understand why is he saying that, he can see Jin was going to hit him. But Kong smoothly ignore his move. Jin can't believe how can he do that. As Lang is doing celestial dragon steps. As he looks back Kong immediately use his inner energy and attack at him. Jin Hui block his attack but he hurts his wrist. Jin said this bastard is strong he almost broke my wrist. Kong threw his move, Jin jump in the air, he thinks he have to increase his distance. But the Kang's inner energy grabs him, Jin Hui can't understand what's this. But he thought he will finish it at once. Kong was going to throw his move. He steps with his full energy, he moves faster than faster. Jin Hui can't understand what to do now. As Kong was moving fast. He just said this bastard and merge 8 directions divine banishment. And said how about this? But this can't make Kong stop. Jin threw his move but Kong block his attack again, Jin Hui can't understand how's that possible. Kong mixes his and Jin Hui's moves. Jin Hui said my technique, he disintegrated it. How is it possible? Let me widen distance again. And he run far away from him. Kong said you won't be able to do it twice and hit him hard, Jin shout with pain. His mouth was bleeding. He was looked surprised but Kong won't stop he run fast to attack at Jin, and dig him into the ground. Jin was roaring with pain. After Kong finished his move, he stand still while Jin Hui was laying on the ground, as he was unable to stand after beating so hard. He said, "You trash." Kong said, "You have pretty useful martial arts skill." Jean said, "You bastard cough. You son of bitch, I'll kill you. Do you think you can get away with this?" Kong take a silent gap and said, "Before seeking you out, I investigation the organization structure of Kunlun." Jin Hui was so angry he thinks, this bastard hid his skills. I can't believe he can channel so much internal energy into his voice. Kong was looking at him. And said, "So what are you trying to say? In Kunlun, there is the training ground where disciples learn martial arts, then there's the Muzangak where they store the secret scrolls, and the medical hall is a place where they treat patients, but most importantly there was no law enforcement division. Currently the Council of Elders carries that role, however there are no clear laws and regulations." Kong said, "I don't want to doubt the integrity of Kunlun's elders, but people make mistakes, they can't be perfect all the time. That's why scoundrels like you can exploit that loophole." Jean said, this trash. How dare you spout such nonsense?" Kong stepped into his chest and said, "Even in a martial arts sect, any community requires its own laws and order. In fact, it's even more vital in a place where martial arts are practiced." Jin Hui said, "It doesn't matter to me whether Kunlun's reputations crumbles or not, but people like you shouldn't be allowed to live freely." Kong tell him, "As my master, who was born and raised in Kunlun, once said, don't you think his teachings are true?" Then Kong make a fierce face. He can sense people's steps. He looks around. There were headmaster along with Jinan and all the disciples. They saw Kong was step into Jin Hui's chest. The disciples were very shocked, as they didn't even think about that. Headmaster asked Kong to explain to me. As he saw Jin Hui was laying on the ground with anger, he said, "What on earth is going on?" Kong take a look at everyone. And said, "Since I imbued my words with my internal energy, headmaster, you must have heard it too. Surely there's no way that you don't understand, right?" He disciples were shocked as no dare to talk like this with headmaster. They thought he's being rude toward the headmaster. Jinan said, "Senior, I mean headmaster first, let's move Jin Hui to the medical hall and hear the detailed recounting of the situation." Kong said, Ryong and Xian's treatment in the medical hall comes first. He turns toward them and said, to be specific, "I'm not letting him leave until Ryong opens her eyes." Headmaster instantly said, "What impudence! What do those children have anything to do with Jin Hui's situation?" Kong tell them that's because this guy tried to suppress the severity of those children's injuries, going so far as to mobilize his junior to try and cover up his disciples' assault. Jin Hui shout, "Elder, no. You have to listen." Everyone who stand around was shocked after see this. Kong said, "Oh, rather than just an assault, it was closer to attempted murder." Headmaster ordered Jinan to call the perpetrator Unhang here and confirm it. Jinan trying to handle the situation, but headmaster don't want to listen him and ask him again, "Call Unhang." When Unhang reached, she was shocked after see Jin Hui's condition. She was unable to think about anything else. She said, Master. What the heck happened? To leave master in such a state?" Headmaster asked her, "You probably know why we called you here." Unhang was surprised after hear that. Headmaster asked her, "Tell us everything." Unhang was so scared that she didn't tell more than, "I am sorry. I was wrong." "Actually," headmaster shout, "First elder." Jinan reply, "Yes, headmaster." Headmaster order him to starting with the Kunlun second generation, Unhang, gather all the students involved in the assault in front of the medical hall. Anyone involved in this incident will not be let off lightly. The standings of disciple Jin Hui and Jin San will be discussed further in the Elders' Council. And we will conduct a thorough internal investigation throughout Kunlun for the next month. Entry and exit to and from Kunlun is strictly prohibited. The disciple was surprised from headmaster's decision. Headmaster continued talking. "So can we consider the situation settled now?" Kong said, "Are you finished speaking?" Headmaster was surprised by this kind of speaking by Kong. Kong said, "I still have one thing left to say. Shouldn't the true culprit of a crime as severe as attempted murder be sentenced to an appropriately severe punishment?" Headmaster asked him, "What do you mean? Wait, if that's the case, are you saying there's another culprit?" Kong said, "No matter how much I think about it, it's difficult to believe that these young children have the skills to use crane palm." Unhang was standing beside him. She was surprised that how can he know about that. Headmaster was really shocked. He said, "That means, are you saying that Jin Hui attacked a second-generation disciple with his own hands?" Kong tell him that Ryong was gravely injured by an attack using a martial arts technique that focuses on palm strikes. It's the same as this guy's specialty, the crane palm technique. Above all, the jade dragon chi that remains in Ryong body is similar to the energy that flows in this bastard's body. Headmaster was disappointed that he has such an evil disciple in his sect. He said, "That's ridiculous. If it's true, this can't be ignored." Jin Hui sit down. He had been coughing with blood. Headmaster asked him, "Jin Hui, are you okay?" Jin Hui said, why are you still listening to this guy's story? Whatever. He stands up, but headmaster was look very angry. Jin Hui said, shit. Headmaster asked him, you. Is that true that Ryong? Jin Hui said, if it's true, then what? Headmaster said, Jin Hui, you. Jin Hui tell him that when a low-ranked disciple dares to threaten her master. When disciple runs wild, the master needs to rectify their behavior. Headmaster ask him, you went this far because she scolded you. Jin Hui reply, of course I am at fault for my inability to manage the other disciples properly and even wrongly laid my hands on one, but she blatantly ignored Kunlun's etiquette and dared to talk back to, is it wrong to point out an adult's mistake? Kong ask him, are you saying that the adults of Kunlun never commit mistakes throughout their lives? If so, there's no distinction between good or evil in Kunlun. Disciples were watching them from a distance. Jin Hui said, this wretch. How far are you going to disrespect Kunlun? Headmaster, did you hear that? He's. Headmaster got very angry. He shouts with anger, stop it. He was looking like a ghost in the dark. Jin Hui was very scared after watching him in that anger. Headmaster said, Jin Hui, when his inner energy was flowing out from his eyes. He said, if you dare utter such drivel again, I won't even give you a chance to repent. Jin Hui was very scared. He simply follow what headmaster asked him. He said yes. He thought, I can't believe the headmaster can get this angry. Headmaster smiles and look at Kong. He said, and disciple Bailey, I understand where you're coming from, but as a headmaster, I think this was too much. Kong said, is that so? Headmaster tell him there are procedures that you must follow. Kunlun has its own laws. You could have come to us first, told us the whole story, then have the law handle the situation properly. Kan said to do so is a privilege reserved only for human beings. I can't even consider these swine as human instead. Jinan said, disciple. He was trying to stop him, but Kong continued talking. He said, I see there's no place for me here. Please handle the rest properly according to the laws of Kunlun. I must go now. At Kunlun sect, Kong was standing outside the sect watching the building. He carries his luggage in a bag. He remembers his master and close his eyes. He thinks, even till the end all I ever bring is trouble. Someone from Kang's behind said, are you leaving? Kong turns to see who is behind. There was a headmaster. Headmaster said, a neat uniform, a spotless room, and skipping meals for 3 days. Plus, the detached attitude you displayed that day. No matter how I see it, I can only assume you're planning to leave Kunlun, am I correct? Kong take a silent gap. Then he said, I just don't feel like I'm in the right place. Headmaster take a silent gap. And after that he tell him, currently Jin San and Jin Hui are locked in the dungeon as we are discussing their exile in Ryong is recovering quickly, so quickly in fact that people are surprised. Kong asked him, why are you telling me such things? Headmaster Master said, I thought you might like to hear it and you deserve to know. Then he smiles and said, but more than anything I'd like it if you remained here in Kunlun. Then he sighs and said, even though the headmaster himself is asking me to stay, I don't think I'm worthy of such treatment. Headmaster asked him, you don't trust my intuition? I can't say I completely trust it either after today's events, but I know you want the revival of Kunlun more than anything. Weren't you the one who reminded me of what was most important? While creating a policy called Sam Chong Swordsman, I had hoped it would revitalize the Kunlun region. I believed such policy would serve as a foundation for Kunlun's name to stand tall as one of the most powerful sects once again. However, even if we did become famous and powerful, if such incidents continue to happen internally, what's the point? Of course, your actions were extreme, but it wasn't unjust. I wondered if I was unable to look back at Kunlun because I was so distracted by what was ahead of me. Then he takes a silent gap and asks him, please remain in Kunlun. And move his hand toward Kong to insist him. And he said, I believe that we need your honesty and outspoken nature. Kong said, Celestial Bound Benevolence Technique 15, the best offensive martial arts of the Bailey clan. Headmaster was surprised after hearing such a thing. Kong tell him more. He said, by now, due to excessive use of his Qi gene, he must be struggling with the rampant surge of internal energy in his body. He will be in pain for about 15 days. Headmaster didn't know what to say about that, so he remained silent. Then Kong said, I am truly grateful to you for treating me with such kindness, but I have no time for sympathy or mercy. If I pull out a sword, I do so with the intent to destroy and kill. I can't guarantee that the target won't be Kunlun. So there's no need to burden yourself with someone troublesome like me. Headmaster said, no, it won't be a burden at all. Kong asked him, it sounds like you don't know me. Headmaster tell him that it's more like you don't know yourself. He smiles and said, how could someone who steps up and cares for his disciples ever be considered as someone troublesome? And ask him, wouldn't you agree? Kong was very surprised after know this. He closes his fist and said, I'm. Then a girl from a side called him. Senior. Kong looked toward her, she run toward Kong and hug him. She asks him please don't go. She was Un Ryong, she was crying and asked him. You can't leave like this. You saved me and I haven't paid you back. Kong was surprised to see her. Headmaster said if you acted without integrity would the child still follow you like this? It appears my intuition was spot on this time. He tells him that there's an easier way to ensnare a beast than to exchange 1,000 words. You're caught, disciple. Few days later, Kong doing practice in a cold weather. Kong looked down, then he looked in his fists. He thinks, I tried to improve the heavenly fire chi with the martial arts skills I gained from the Musean Pavilion, but it's already been 3 days and I failed yet again. My mind was stable, but my output was low. I guess it's impossible to achieve what I wanted to all at once. It doesn't matter, I just need to keep improving it bit by bit. I have to quicken the peace. There's no time to enjoy the current peace. The opponent is the demon sect. The rebellion of the northern demonic sect has thrown Zhongyuan into chaos. Even knowing what they're capable of does not guarantee our victory in this war. The Bailey clan knew about the demonic sect more than any other clan. And I predict that within a few years, an all-out attack by the demonic sect will engulf the martial arts world. And that was just the start of the northern demon sect's rebellion. He opens his fist and look into the palm of his hand. He thinks the celestial bound benevolence technique is neither a physical nor an energy attack. It's rooted in the profound arts of lethal martial techniques. Don't let your martial arts be influenced by your murderous intent. He was standing on the edge of Cold Mountain. The improvement must be completed as soon as possible. Have I really been doing all I can up till now? He closes his fist again. I have to be prepared to throw my life away. His inner energy flowing like fire. In order to completely destroy my targets. Someone called him from behind, Senior. Then she laughed and said, can't believe you come all the way here to train. Kong said, I guess you're doing better now. Un Ryong said, of course I'm already good and healthy. I guess I recover quickly since I'm still young. Kong looked toward her. She notices that and asks him, did something happen? I gave Un Hang a little talking to. I decided to use this fist of mine. Oh, I feel so refreshed. Kong said, it seems there are seeds of violence like you in the new Kunlun. What a shame. Un Ryong teased him and said, oh my, I don't think Senior should be the one talking here. You blew Master Jin San and Jin Hui. If I am the seed of violence, Senior is the seed of complete destruction. This made Kong silent. He said, I really can't read this, young junior. She stops this topic and asks him, by the way, did you hear? Elder Chongyam stepped down from his position as an elder and began to reflect on. Kong turned around. He closed his eyes and said, I know, I was really surprised. I feel dejected and angry. Then he went to Headmaster. Headmaster said, more than anything I'm angry at myself. Until I can offer a sincere apology to both you and Un Ryong, I will give up my position as an elder and pay for my sins together with my disciple. Kong said, is that so? Headmaster take a silent gap. He closes his eyes and said, truthfully, I was anxious from the first time I saw you and your bloodlust. You probably know it yourself. Your master said he was anxious whether he could prevent you from becoming the worst monster in history, but at the same time, he also said that you are a child who is worth guiding indefinitely. I don't know which path you'll end up taking, but I don't want you to become a monster before you receive a sincere apology from our two masters. After telling all this to Un Ryong, Kong began to move forward. Un Ryong called him and said, oh, Senior. Where are you going? Let's go together. Kong looked up the sky. He thinks it seems the cold is about to begin in earnest. I'll finish everything in the winter. In the morning at the Kunlun sect, the guard was growing. He saw someone is coming toward sect. He said, please stop. You can't enter without having a prior arrangement or a pass. The person takes off his hat and said, the headmaster. There was a beautiful young lady. She said, please tell the headmaster hat the third princess of the Danmok clan has arrived. She entered in Kunlun sect. In the conversation hall, headmaster said, thank you for coming all the way, please have some tea. She said, thank you. Headmaster asked her, how should I address you, madam? Then she said, you can call me Cha Ryong from the Danmok fortress. She was Cha Ryan of the Danmok clan. Headmaster asked her, did you say that you are the third princess of Danmok clan? She said, that's correct, headmaster. Headmaster smiles and observe her mental strength is quite commendable. However, she doesn't quite live up to the rumors. Then he said, the head of family is very fortunate with such an exceptional child. He must rest easy. Cha Ryan said, you flatter me. My future remains uncertain after all. Headmaster smiled while he grabs tissue to wipe his face. He said, well, let's get straight to the point. Looking at the letter sent by the head of Danmok clan. Within a year, the Northern Murim Alliance HQ construction conference will be convened at Gujyu Great Hall, and it seems the clan leader washes for my supportive vote on the matter. At Gujyu Great Hall, it's a venue where the Murim Alliance meetings are usually held. Kunlun sect being one of the ancient sects wields considerable influence within the council. Cha Ryan bowed her head and said, how dare we ask you to vote for our personal benefit, although it's only a recommendation. I am here tasked with a mission to explain the benefits. Headmaster said, I like your honesty. While looking at the letter, Cha Ryan said, I would not dare to lie to the headmaster. Headmaster found something suspicious, he said, but the construction the northern headquarters is. Is this the site of Bailey clan? Cha Ryan tell him that there is a rumor that the descendant of Bailey clan has become a disciple in another sect. It has already spread widely in Gang Ho. Headmaster closed the letter and spoke. It's not even recent news, that's why I didn't make an effort to stop the rumors. Cha Ryan said, to be exact, I found out about his 2 years ago from my family. Headmaster closed the letter, put it on the table and said, to be honest, the current situation is not right. I wish you had asked me for help on the day of the meeting instead. I think sending someone like this before the meeting is very tactless. It certainly doesn't leave a good impression. Cha Ryan was surprised. Yun said, my apologies for potentially clouding the headmaster judgment. However, headmaster, this is a mission that has been entrusted to me. To explain the immense benefits that the construction of the northern headquarters will bring. I apologize that things have to happen like this. Please understand that all that my words are not driven by personal desires. Headmaster said, very well, go on. She continues talking. Bailey clan's god of war in the realm of martial arts, they stand as a beacon, firmly holding a place among the esteemed 7 great clans. Wielding such might, this indomitable clan has steadfastly defended Zhongyuan's front lines from foreign invaders. But to stop large number of enemy forces with a small number of people, headmaster said, they've also strategically the topography and their environment. Put her finger on the table and said, that's correct headmaster, isn't it such a shame to leave it like that? Hence, it would be great if the headmaster could help persuade that person, who's both the descendant of the Bailey clan and also a discus, Kunlun, to please. Headmaster grabbed the cap of cup and said, it is inappropriate. From the beginning the direction of this conversation is wrong. Cha Ryan said, I beg your pardon. Headmaster tell her that talking to me, the headmaster, while the Bailey clan's descendant is not present is somewhat wrong. Cha Ryan said, ah, that's. Headmaster said, while I am the leader of Kunlun, I cannot simply dismiss their feelings and dictate their opinions. I will call him, you should try speaking with him directly. Meanwhile, Kong was doing meditation in the backyard. When he finished his meditation, he went inside to have meal. Ryong served him meal and said, I heard you haven't eaten in the dining hall for 3 days. I never imagined you'd actually starve yourself. Then she put her hand to her face and said, aren't you fortunate to have such a caring disciple like me, who remembers to bring you meals? Kong asked her, you didn't need to bring anything, really. Ryong said, all you had to do is say thanks. Why do you have to be so difficult? Kong said, thanks. Ryong asked him, what kind of training have you been doing all day and night? Won't you faint if you keep this up? I really thought you'd become a snowman or something. As she saw him doing meditation in cold. Kong tell her that this level of training is nothing to me. My energy sustains me. She put her hands in her head's back with surprise. Kong looked toward his and think true, there were moments when I feel close to death as I trained. But those moments were milestones. It's not the kind of progress where my internal power expands or develops my physical form, but the insight from deconstructing and reconstructing high-level martial arts techniques is invaluable. The next training will be even more dangerous. He thinks of himself full of blood. If I make even the slightest mistake, my body will not be able to endure it. However, this is a training that's worth the risk, and slowly I need to go visit my clan too. Ryong showed interest in his talking as she was listening him very carefully. She said, if I want to be strong like senior, do I have to be strong? Do I have to train that much? Kong said, I still have a long way to go. And doesn't Kunlun teach you that there is no end to learning? Ryong said, still there was no one who really risked their life to train like you, senior. Nag said, I knew I was risking my life. Human are destined to be alone after all. This makes her silent. Kong continued talking. He said, because of that, being faithful to myself is extremely important. I have to solve my own problems. Ryong seems to be understand what he is talking. Kong said, of course you don't have to push yourself too hard. Anyway, do you have to say something else to me? Ryong can't understand what's he talking about. She said, sorry. Kong looked at her and said, you look like you do. Ryong was surprised, how do he know that? She said, I totally forgot about it when I saw you became a snowman. She tells him that the headmaster asked you to come over to Sangchong Palace. Kong went to the palace where Cha Ryan and headmaster was sitting. Kong greet them and ask headmaster, did you call for me? Headmaster said, that's right. Headmaster asked him, did I disturb you in the middle of training? Kong said, I came here after I finished. Headmaster said, did you rush since you heard we have a guest, or did you not hear about it? Kong reply no, I didn't because the messenger seems a little forgetful. Ryong shout I can be forgetful at times too. Headmaster point Cha Ryan and tell him this guest came to meet you hence why I called for you. Kong turn his head to look who is she. He seems to know where she come from, he said what business does the Danmark clan have with me? The make Ryan surprised. She said you knew that I was from the Danmark clan. Kong said I've seen a person with similar energy before a long time ago. Headmaster was surprised too. He thinks he could discern someone's energy without making contact. You've grown so much these past 2 months, Headmaster asked him please have a seat. Please talk comfortably. Cha Ryan take a brief look at Kong. She thinks he is tall and has a strong build. He has the physique of warrior. His stride seem confident yet unremarkable. However, just by taking a glance, he could tell where I'm from. Headmaster said as you said, this lady here who is from the Danmark clan, specifically the third daughter of the head. Cha Ryan greet him saying nice to meet you and introduce herself. My name is Cha Ryong of the Danmark clan. Kong also introduce himself. I am Bailey's Kong. Cha Ryan thinks such a profound voice resolute in its tone. This won't be easy. Headmaster said let's sit down first. She consoles herself saying let's be calm. I'm not here to compete in martial arts. I'm here to do what I'm good at, negotiation. She smiles and said the tragedy of the Bai Li clan has been the source of sorrow for people of Gang Ho. I might be late, but please receive my condolences. Kong stopped by giving her his hand sign. He said I'm sorry but please state your business. She said yes. Kong understands that I know there's something else you wanted to talk about, but to think you're starting the conversation by invoking a painful memory. He said is there a need to do so? Ryan said then I'll get straight to the point. Ryan understands that he's the kind of person who hates to beat around the bush. It's a trait I've noticed in many of Gang Ho's martial artists. Whatever, it's not a loss because I don't have to talk as much. She explains him everything, and said so, I have come to ask your permission, as you are the proxy of the head of the Bai Li clan. Kong said I see. I've listened, I shall take my leave now. Ryan said descendant of Baal if it's hard to decide right now, you can take a few days. Kong said are you a warrior that is officially dispatched by the Murim Alliance? Ryan can't understand what he is trying to say. She said sorry. Kong said or do you perhaps hold the authority to decide within the Murim Alliance? Ryan said that's not it but. Kong said then it's something that could be decided 1 year later at the Gujiu Great Hall. I don't think it's something that you should consider now. Ryan said of course, what you said is correct, but there's no need to make things difficult, right? Kong said you intend to construct a building on the very land where I was born and raised, and expect me to make a swift decision about it? Cha Ryan shout and said of course, I didn't mean it that way. It's just, for the sake of Murim Alliance and Gang Ho. Kong grabbed the cup of tea and said I don't think it's appropriate to involve the Murim Alliance and Gang Ho in such a backhanded maneuver. I think it would be better to end the conversation here. Cha Ryan was trying to control her anger. She said descendant of Bai Li, I apologize for offending you, but you're too harsh. I wasn't trying to harm or force you, I'm just trying to persuade you. Ryan think he's blocking me in what I do best. She said you don't have to be this disrespectful. Kong smiles and said disrespectful? You approached the headmaster first instead of me, aren't you the one who started being disrespectful to me first? To be exact it's your father who is disrespectful since he told you to do this. I know how busy the head of the clan is, but if you really wanted to ask for my favor, he should come and persuade me personally. Had the headmaster not called for me, you would have probably done as you please without my knowing. Voting will be held at Gujiu Great Hall, correct? If my home could be used, and if it's a good thing for the people of Gang Ho's, I have no objection since I don't wish to make things difficult. However, it must be done with mutual respect and interest. Right now, I don't even respect or understand your wish. Everyone was sitting calmly. Kong said headmaster. Do you have time to spare for a conversation with me? Headmaster said of course. Kong put his hand on the table and stand up. He said I enjoyed the conversation. And leave the place. Headmaster said then let us end it here. Cha Yun was very angry. In the yard headmaster asked Kong are you angry? Kong said rather than that. Headmaster said are you disappointed? Kong said I guess somewhat. Just 3 years ago, both the Bai Li and Danmark clan held a seat in the 7 great clans. Now, with my family gone and without any real power, I have to make the decisions. I don't appreciate being taken advantage of. Headmaster said I don't understand why they insist on constructing on your clan site, but that lady seemed persistent. She might be shocked by your words and actions today, but she doesn't seem like the type to back down. Kong said headmaster, are you thinking of letting her stay at Kunlun? Headmaster said of course, as long as she does not cause any trouble, she's Kunlun's guest. Kong turned around. Headmaster smiles and said you've changed. Kong said yes. Headmaster said you were once so tough like steel and rock, you've softened up. It seems like I have to thank Un Ryong for that. Kong was confused. Why is he saying that? He said I think the headmaster has also changed. Headmaster grabbed his beard and told me. Kong briefly looked at him and said, Headmaster, are you sick? Headmaster was surprised by this. Kong said, seems like I was right. Headmaster asked him, did the head of the medical hall tell you? Kong said, I haven't been to the medical hall these past 2 months. Headmaster asked him then, how did you find out? Kong said, something is eating slowly at your life force. When I saw you for the first time, I wasn't sure of it, now, I'm certain. Headmaster said, I was not aware that you also possess medical skills. That's problem. I don't. Kong said, the thing I can see through is just one. Demonic chi. Headmaster again grabbed his beard and said, does he recognize the demon sect's poison? Kong said, I'll go visit my family. Headmaster said, family, do you mean the Bailey residence? Kong said, yes. Kong tell him, I've been thinking of visiting there for quite some time, now, it seems that I have other reasons to go there too. When he was leaving, Cha Ryan stopped him and said, hey. Please wait a moment. Where you going? A while ago Un Ryong asked him, when you come back bring me some candied fruit. She makes fierce face. Kong was looked confused as he has no idea why is she saying that in a condition like that. He said, candied fruit, you mean the sugar snack? Un Ryong said, of course it's sweet, did you think it'd be salty or something? She stands like a warrior. Kong said, why do you sound like upset, you seem a bit off today. She said, I'm not upset. Why'd you decide all of a sudden to leave the mountain? And for 3 whole months without telling me? Kong said, I already said sorry earlier, I've discussed this with the headmaster. Un Ryong instantly said, never mind. Kong turned around and said, well then take care. Un Ryong was look very upset, she is trying to hold her tears. She calls him, senior, and throw something toward him, and said, take this. Kong catch the small bag. And said this, Un Ryong tell him, I've been saving this for over a year as an emergency fund, it's your choice whether to use it or not. Kong think, is this money to buy candied fruit? While going from the stairs he thinks, if I say that, she will definitely bite my ears off. While he was heading out of the place, someone stopped him. It's Cha Ryan. She said, please wait a moment. Kong turned back. She said, where are you going? Kong said, I have no obligation to tell you. Ryan said, no, you have to tell me. My job is to convince you. He shouts with anger. She said, if you're not in Kunlun, that means I can't carry out the mission. Kong said, I gave you my answer. Ryan said, that answer is the reason why my mission is not over yet. I will continue to follow and persuade you. Kong gave her a thriller look. He think, what a shameless thing to say. He sighs and said, I'm visiting my home. She said, are you headed to the Bailey clan's location? Kong said, yeah, now stop bothering me. She thinks, that attitude, I've never been treated this way ever since I was born. How can you be so rude? I won't ever give up, I will chase you until I get an answer. And she steps in the rooftop. Descending the mountain after 2 years and 2 months. That marked the beginning of the legacy of the Bailey clan's last beast. In near the Kunlun sect Day Seol Ryu. Someone said, welcome, there were snow everywhere. Yun enter in Day Seol Ryu. A man said, who's this? Then he remembers her. He smiles and said, isn't that Yun? Yun step in the room and said, Uncle Lee, you're here. Uncle Lee said, yes, how come you came back so quickly? Yun tell him, so, things happened. Uncle Lee said, it seems like everything went smoothly, I didn't expect you to come back in less than a day. Yun said, no, uncle. I actually came down because I was following the root of the problem that we had solved. She was following Kong. She looks toward him. And point him. Her uncle takes a brief look at him. And said, the root of problem you say. Kong was taking his exchanges, lightning flash. Kong was practicing in a place with his sword. And said, I can do it. It's difficult, but I can control it. Skills and physical strength can be honed and I can perform martial arts without spilling any murderous intent. But this energy is, he said, show yourself. Someone was standing behind him. He was shocked. How come he know that? It was Uncle Lee. He apologizes. He was head of escort Lee Ji Huan. He said, I didn't intend to peek at anything. He came close to Kong and said, since I've been caught by you, let me introduce myself, I'm Lee Ji Huan. Kong think, if his name is Lee Ji Huan, he should be the younger brother of the head of the Danmok clan. Kong introduced himself, I am Bai Li clan's Kong. Lee Ji Huan said, it's honored to be able to see the descendants of the Bai Li clan. He moves his hand for shake hand and said, was that sword just now the Kunlun sword? That's amazing. It's not easy to reach that at your age. Kong didn't give him any type of sign. He remained silent. Lee Ji Huan said, is there something on my face? Kong said, my answer remains the same. Li Ji Huan make a fierce face and said you sure are very quick-witted. Kong said it's rare that a stranger that I just met today has come all the way to meet me. Li Ji Huan show him his wrist and said well then, it's a shame, can't you at least tell me the reason why you are refused? If we knew the reason, we might be able to resolve it by talking it out. Kong leaves saying I have no intention and the need to solve it. Li Ji Huan put his hand in his face while Kong was leaving. He said what an unusual person. You better be careful. My warriors and I came as bodyguards. If the situation continues like this, I have no choice but to intervene. I don't mean to intrude on her mission. However, once we do it won't be nice. Kong stopped, and Li said I wish we could resolve this without an argument, but this kid sure is something. His rigid and inflexible attitude, he's definitely the descendant of the Bai Li clan. In the hotel the attender said I have prepared towels for 10 days. Here is also a water container and fire starter. I also packed some of our remaining wine. Kong said thank you. Yun coming from the room, she stopped after see Nag. She said Bai Li descendant, are you leaving already? Kong take his bag, and standing in reception, she was coming fast toward Kong. But Kong was also moving very fast. She was running after him. She was angry. She called her uncle, Li Ji Hua, call his warriors everyone, and order them to chase Kong. Kong was running as fast as he can.